What's the situation there, Jonathan?
Okay, and look at each other. Okay, get a bit closer to your lip, Darren. Okay, and 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's it. Right.
So you drink all that beer, you see.
Hands holding hands. Or dancing. Whatever it does you fancy. Yeah, just keep the rhythm. Keep the rhythm.
Keep it going, keep it going.
Oh, we've got a killer spot here. You just move your head slightly up, please. We can see more iron. Forward a wee bit, sort of bit closer to it. Yeah, that's it. That's beautiful. See, they look in just in the distance. Oh, class. Yeah, we'll do a couple more like that and we're done here. And Aaron, if you also look in the distance, yeah, look over there. Brilliant shot. Great guys. Everybody wave and say hi! Everybody wave! Susie! Hey guys, how is it going? So here we are in Lightroom, and here's a few shots from the day I wanted to share with you. Got a lot of great shots. Very, very good day. I maxed out 2 cards. One was a 32 gig card, the other one was a smaller 8 gig card. Completely maxed them out. Just a really, really nice day. Lots of really nice, good shots. So I wanted to share 2 or 3 of them with you quickly and show you a quick little bit of Lightroom processing. So we're going to fire through this real quick. So, first shot is from the pier. As you can see, this is underexposed. I was using my 24-105mm lens for this. Did take a lot of shots from this angle, looking down on the pier, and this is one of my favorites. I did like how the composition worked. You know, it sort of really works nicely with the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds, in case you don't know, is you have your image and you divide it into 3 parts, with your vertical lines and your horizontal lines. And ideally, if your subject and horizon or subjects are lying on one of the lines, then they say it is more pleasing to the eye. Now, rules are always made to be broken, and it's nothing that you need to strictly adhere to, but it's something you should be aware of. And it works really nicely in this image, in my opinion, and I like it. So, okay, so it's a bit underexposed. That ain't a problem. I think at the time I was probably exposing for the sky. It's always better to underexpose a bit than overexpose, because if you overexpose, then you're going to lose all that detail and all that information. So, underexposing by a stop or so, never an issue, not a problem. So, exposure's up. Going to drop the contrast just to soften it a little bit. Highlights I am going to bring up a tiny bit. I'm going to bring up the shadows, just to bring up that detail in the clothes and on the pier down here. Whites I'm going to head up a notch, and I'm going to take some of that black out of it. Now, clarity, should I soften it a little bit? Because it should be, you know, it's nice and romantic and should be nice and soft, but I do like my clarity. So we might change that. Clarity is great for bringing out all your midtones, or whenever you reduce the clarity, for completely getting rid of all your midtones, which is something that I am not a fan of at all. Vibrance is a lot more subtle than saturation, and we can bring up the vibrance a bit. We're not going to touch HCSL, although we might. There's a lot of blue going on here in the water, which, you know, hey, it's water, it's nice. It should be blue, but I just feel that it looks a bit too saturated, so I'm going to drop that down a little bit. we can bring out all the blues and get rid of it. It's a bit too much. Just to soften those blues. Right there. Okay, so sharpening, as always, it's my personal preference. I'm happy to stick around 70 for my sharpening in Lightroom, and then if I want to add any additional sharpening, then I might bring it into Photoshop. Masking, we'll just mask some of the area. I know that, you know, we don't need the whole image masked for the sharpening, so I think about 22. Once again, it's my personal preference. We'll put the finger on the Alt key just to bring up the overlay. Just thinking about it. So obviously this is Lightroom 5, Lightroom 6 is coming out shortly, and the new Lightroom CC is out already, which they say is a lot faster than Lightroom 5, because apparently it works with your graphics card as opposed to, I guess, your processor. So it's going to work really fast, which I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on a copy of Lightroom 6 or maybe even Lightroom CC, which is something I'm considering. Anyhow, this is just taking far too much time, so we're going to whiz through this very quickly. So enable profile corrections, remove chromatic aberration. I'm not going to use a vignette, and I don't think we will touch any of the camera calibration. So as far as that goes, maybe bring some of those blacks out of it a little bit more. Okay, so we can have a quick look at the before and after. So before and after, and I'm happy with that. I am going to create a very quick snapshot. So we're going to hit Control N, and we're going to call it 2 black and white. Oh, sorry, 2 color. OLOUR is how we spell color in the UK, not COLOR as they call it in the US. Create. So, okay, we're going to turn this quickly into black and white, real quick, and we're going to add some clarity to this because I like my clarity with my black and whites. I'm going to bring up the exposure slightly, bring down the contrast just to soften it a little bit. It's always nice to balance out the contrast with the clarity, and I'm happy with that. That's good. So Control N and 2 BW. Create. Okay, moving quickly on to the next one. So staying at the pier, another shot that I really liked. The first thing I'm going to do is we're going to straighten this up a bit. So we're going to hit Enable Profile Corrections and remove chromatic aberration. And we could hit one of these just to, because it is a bit tilted. I'm not a big fan of tilted photographs. Sometimes it works, but for the most part I like my images nice and straight. And I'm not a big fan of cropping images too much, but whenever it comes to something like this, just a little bit, just to straighten it, it ain't a problem for me, just to crop it a little bit. Like so. So it's looking better already now that it's nice and straight. I'm going to just raise the exposure a tiny bit to about there. I'm going to get rid of some of those blacks. I'm going to bring up the whites a little bit. I'm going to bring up the shadows. We will leave the highlights. And we're going to add just a touch of clarity for those mid-tones. This was shot with the 70-200mm at f2.8, and it is pretty nice and sharp. Could be a little bit sharper, but you know, it's not too bad. It was handheld. I wasn't using a monopod or a tripod at the time, but you know, it looks really good. Zoom back out. Add a touch of vibrance. Scroll down. Sharpening around 70. And we'll add just a little bit of mask for that. Noise reduction we don't need. This was a very bright afternoon and I was shooting for the most part at ISO 50. And we'll add just a tiny little vignette. Just like that. Maybe bring up the shadows a little bit more. So before and after. Nice subtle changes, but it does make a nice difference. And I like that. I like that shot. Okay, and moving on to the final image, which was taken just down from the pier. We're at the boathouse here, so I am going to raise the exposure a little bit. And I'm going to get rid of some of those highlights for the sky. I'm going to bring the contrast down a little bit. And we're going to get rid of some of those blacks. And we'll just bring up the whites a tiny bit. Clarity, once again, just a little bit of clarity added makes some difference. Vibrance a bit more. And we'll bring the blues down for the sky. Sorry, it's saturation. Go into luminance. So we'll just make those clouds just a little bit more defined. Like so. Sharpening at around 70. And we will use the mask overlay. Something like that looks good. Enable profile corrections, remove chromatic aberration. Maybe adjust the blue primary just to bring more vibrance into this. Doesn't just affect the blues. And I want to add some warmth as well, so we'll go into the white balance and bring some warmth into this. I'm going to bring more white into it. Maybe raise the exposure slightly. More clarity. Okay, I know what this is nice and sharp. And yeah, it's looking good. So I do like that. I'm going to save that. So Control N for your snapshot. And we'll call it 3 color. And we're going to turn it quickly into black and white. And for this, I am going to bring up the clarity a little bit more. Now, even though it's black and white, it still retains all the information of the original raw files. So it's black and white, but you've still got your color sliders within black and white, which means I can adjust the blues, the areas that were blue, even though it's a black and white image. So we can darken those blue skies a bit more. We can maybe even raise the oranges for the skin tones. So And I think we're going to add a slight little vignette just to make it a little bit more moody. Yep. Okay, I'm happy with that. So there you have it. There is just a small little sample of images from the wedding at the weekend. Please subscribe to the channel. There should be a button appearing on the screen about now. So click on subscribe, and I will catch you next time, guys. See ya.